Hello there, Dr. Ferdinand.
Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me.
Hello, everybody on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us for our final installment before the opening of Wizard of Oz of Hammond Academy for the Performing Arts Over the Rainbow, Conversations with Artists from Oz series. Do remember that this is an interactive conversation with our guest. We're so delighted to have Dr. Ferdinand here, the director of Oakwood University's Aeolians. Please put your comments in the chat. We have 2 student representatives this evening who are going to be monitoring the chat and bringing your questions to the table at a couple of different points this evening. So at this time, I'd like to invite Christian and Ari onto the screen. Let's see you guys. There he is. Hi, Christian. This is Christian Walker. Christian, this is Dr. Ferdinand.
Hi, Christian.
And then also Ari is her camera does not work on her Chromebook, unfortunately. This is what we deal with in 2020 all the time, but she is here. Say hi, Ari.
Hi.
Hello.
Great. So thank you so much, both of you, for representing Walton High School and HAPA this evening, and we'll see you very soon.
Awesome. So
we do have a video that we would like to play just in case you haven't heard of Dr. Jason Max Ferdinand up until now. Students, I know that's not you. Let's play a little introductory video for the rest of our audience.
What's going on, everyone? This is Jason Max Ferdinand here, conductor of the Aeolians of Oakwood University and also founder of J Max Music.
Dr. Jason Max Ferdinand is the Director of Choral Activities, Professor, and the Chair of the Music Department at Oakwood University.
Turn slowly and it's gradually just switch the arm when you're ready. And slowly just listen to the sound as you go around.
Aeolians of Oakwood University, and as evidenced by noteworthy awards, has distinguished himself on the national and international choral stages. In 2017, he earned the Outstanding Director and Choir of the World Awards at the Llangollen International Musical Festival in Wales. So I apologize, everybody. As I was just telling Dr. Ferdinand, we have a pretty big storm that is rolling through the Chicagoland area right now, and I think that has disrupted our ability to be able to play such large files. But
that's fine.
Yeah. So once again, I know you have your agenda is full each and every day. So I just want to thank you again for taking the time to come and chat with us.
No problem at all. No problem.
So I'll jump right in by talking. So our theme this year for HAPA is finding home. And I was listening to a couple of your interviews that you've done with Chris Muntz in Choralosophy.
Yeah.
We went to UMKC together, so he's it's a small world. And he was asking you, as far as your experience when you came to the States in race relations here in the U.S., and your response was that it was such a foreign concept to you, having grown up in Trinidad and Tobago. So I would like you to speak a little bit about what home means to you in the broader sense, but then also what your upbringing was like.
Great. Well, again, thanks for having me, and pleasure to be here. So yeah, I was born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago, and primarily we have 2 main races. You know, we have the I guess what you'll call the descendants from Africa, and then the descendants from India, so the East Indians. Then you have all the mixes in between. So the racial divide and divisiveness wasn't as great and obvious, and it wasn't a thing like when I came to live and go to school here. So it took some getting used to initially. So my upbringing, I looked at my Indian friends the same way I looked at all my friends from African heritage, and we all kind of got along, and we didn't think about, you and us. It wasn't a thing at all. But when I got here, I realized very quickly that even within the Black race, there's certain divides there too. Those from Africa, those from the Caribbean, those from. I was like, man, what is this? So it took some getting used to and becoming sensitive to the different things. But I still try not to make it a thing, because I think when we make it a thing, that's when we start kind of creating some walls and barriers. But so home for me, that's what home is, like a collection of people that just work very, very well. And there's a line in our national anthem that says, every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation. And that's how we kind of grew up where I'm from.
Beautiful. So if you could speak a little bit about, I know you talked when you were finishing up in high school, which of course HAPA is, we work primarily with 9th through 12th, even though we are expanding to a full district model next year. So when you were, say, 16, 17, 18 years old, I know that the conversation that was in your mind at that time is that you needed to move outside of the Caribbean in order to be able to seek the education that you were looking for. So could you talk to us a little bit about what that process was like for you?
Sure. Well, again, Trinidad and Tobago kind of follows the British schooling system primarily, even more so then than now. And in that system, it seems as though we had to choose our life's vocation kind of earlier compared to the American system. So, and then I don't know the exact demarcation, but we tend to get through the high school thing a little younger. So I was probably more like 14, 15 when I had already decided to do sciences. I was doing, biology, chemistry, physics on my way to med school when I had that big epiphany to switch to music. So I switched to music in what you guys would call your junior year of college, I guess. So that's when I moved to the States. So by then I was probably 18 in my junior year when I came over to the States here. So that was kind of like my journey. I was doing sciences and then said to my parents that I wanted to do music, and then had to make that shift to come to the States to fulfill that dream.
What caused that shift from the sciences to music?
It's just a passion thing. I was doing very well in the sciences. Well enough to gain acceptance into med school in the Caribbean. But I felt like I was just kind of regurgitating information and just studying for studying's sake. And I didn't really feel that same fire and burn like I did when I was doing music. I was doing both of them simultaneously. Music was just always the fun thing. But I realized quickly that I wanted to delve deeper into that and reach people with that. And I had a greater sense of fulfillment doing that. So I think those are the things that urged me to switch.
Often music and the fine arts in general get sort of put on the outskirts in 9 through 12 curriculum, is seen as almost, it's not extracurricular, but so I'm curious, as far as when you made that switch from the sciences into fine arts, did you see any parallels, and did your education in science help you in music and vice versa?
I think it did. And to this day, the parallels I see them in students here at Oakwood who are in the sciences but sing in my choir. You're coming from the science background, you approach music very systematically, and you look for all the connections very, very, very quickly, because in the sciences, your brain is kind of trained like that. And and I hate to say this, but something about the sciences just ingrains a different type of discipline, just a different type. Some people in the arts are very artsy, as I like to call them, and time means nothing sometimes, or this means nothing. But I think coming from that background, it kind of gives you a very systematic way of approaching things, and I see that even now with the students who biochemistry majors or biology majors, and they come to my core, they just approach it from that angle. And we need some of those in the mix, you know what I mean, to balance everything out. So yeah, there were parallels that I employed. And like I said, because I was doing everything simultaneously, I was probably always kind of cross-fertilizing and didn't even realize it. So yeah, there was the beauty in that. And I think I employ some of those scientific, things even to this day. Yeah.
So you talk about how passion was really the driving force that moved you into music. So we have character focuses each month at our school, and one of those character focuses this year has been the word ambition. So I wonder, what does that word mean to you, and do you feel that passion and ambition go hand in hand?
Yes, I think passion is what causes us to garner ambition. So your passion kind of leads you to learn about whatever that field is. So in this case, passion causes me to learn about scores and learn about composers and learn about text and blah, blah. And then you put those tools together, and that now I could say, I'm going to be ambitious to get this goal or that goal, to do this. So I think they go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other, really. Yeah. I mean, you can have a goal, but if you don't have the passion to do it, you're not going to achieve it. So I think they go hand in hand, definitely.
Okay. So what about the work ethic part of that as well? I think the conversation I've had with my students quite a bit, especially since we've been studying the Aeolians. To give you a little bit of a background about our school, so we are in 100% e-learning right now. Okay. So what choir looks like for us is virtual choir, which I know that you were in that space as well last spring.
Yeah.
And so we have been looking quite a bit at the rehearsal process and really breaking that down, which often you don't have a lot of time to be able to reflect as a group on the rehearsal process and say, okay, this is what was working for us, and this is what maybe we could have done more efficiently. So we've been studying the Aeolians, and we watched the rehearsal video for the ACDA conference. And the question that came up over and over again, it's funny. I know Kirk Franklin, when he heard the Aeolians sing "Oh Perfect Love" for the first time, that he said that they sounded auto-tuned. They were right. They had such a perfect sound that it sounded auto-tuned. My students, I had to giggle to myself because that's exactly what they said.
Oh, wow.
So what I'm interested in is, when it comes to that work ethic, what would you say is kind of the secret? What are the ingredients that come together in order to make that free and yet controlled sound that we hear from your ensemble?
Wow, great question. My dad always tells me that from the time I was very small, I've always been very intense with whatever I'm doing. And, it was last year about this time I had to go back to Trinidad for a funeral for a dear friend of mine that I grew up with, and he was part of a sextet that we had, and we were just kind of reminiscing, the rest of the guys, and they were saying, Jason, you were always the one to make sure all the chords were in tune and made sure everybody had their part. I mean, from a young age, I've always been very meticulous. So the work ethic thing is just ingrained in me from my parents. Both my parents came from families that had 14 siblings. And they were not like rich or anything. Well, they were poor people, but so they grew up working very, very hard. And I think I take that with me even now. But hard working, but fun work. You know what I mean? So in the Aeolians, my kids will tell you we work again very systematically to try and cover all the bases, and we talk about work ethic all the time, whether it's directed to our music making or whether it's directed to being an all-round great student, being work ethic in life. Those are conversations we have all the time in our setting. So but then the free part and the fun part comes after you've put all the nuts and bolts in place, and now there's another layer of our process that we've probably been more intentional with over the years, and I think it's part of the preparation process that most of us don't either have the time to get into, or we haven't thought to get into it. So we've added a whole other layer of, okay, now we know all the songs from beginning to end. We know the entire program beginning to end. What now do we add to make it absolutely special? And there are a lot of secret sources in there that works for us, so that hopefully when you see us perform, it looks like we're just making it up as we go, or just having a ton of fun, and hopefully that's what people have been seeing, and it makes the experience on the other side as a listener even more enjoyable. At least I think so. So I think that's what people see. So yeah, the balance there between working very, very hard, but at the time of delivery, it should seem like a gift.
I can confirm from an audience perspective that it most certainly is a gift to everyone. So in case you had any doubt left over, I want to confirm that for you. It's interesting from my background is in vocal pedagogy. And when I listen, especially to your sopranos, I am, well, hello, welcome to the conversation. Yes. Hi. Singing already. I said vocal pedagogy.
Right.
Like, let me show you. Let me show you my pipes. Great. So especially listening to your soprano section, I'm really inspired by the amount of freedom that they are able to find from a technical standpoint.
Wow.
But I also think that, in my experience, that when you find that openness and that freedom, that you become a vessel, that then the message can pass through. And that is the thing when I listen to the Aeolians that I think you have mastered as an ensemble, is being able to allow yourselves to be in that space, to truly be a vessel for the message of the music. And it fills my soul. And I know many of my colleagues feel the same way that are watching today.
Wow.
So could you wrap up all of that into a short sentence, and what we can be doing over here to harness that same magic? But talk about the process of being able to incorporate technique as well as heart.
That's a very interesting observation. Thanks for the complimentary remarks there. What's interesting about all of that, Jenna, and I'm trying to figure out how to explain this the best way I can. So let me start. So the Aeolians is made up. Many of my singers are not music majors or even minors, right? Mm-hmm. So I found it to be a very interesting balance of how much technical jargon do I talk about or use in my rehearsal, as opposed to using things that everyone in the room can easily relate. So yes, we do have some that are vocal majors, and so what I found is, again, this works for me. That openness and that freedom, I find myself describing that and trying to teach that in very non-technical ways. And you mentioned my sopranos. I'm trying to think of my present group. Most of my sopranos are not majors at all. So we talk about openness and being free, and we'll have a couple of people demonstrate that great sound, and then yes, every now and then I may go into that technical thing, and then I say, oh, okay, that's what we're doing, or we'll have some of the voice majors take some singers, this week, a couple of weeks, and take them to a room and explain some things to them. But we tend to shy away from making it too technical all the time. Right. Because just of the demographic of my singers. Now, if I had a group of all music majors, minors, that would be different, right? Then I could talk that kind of language all day long and they'll readily get it. But so I found myself just using a lot of imagery, and they relate to that very simply, and they get it. So that freedom that we achieve in the voice, hopefully we do achieve it. That's how we do it. Yeah. Thank
you for giving us that insight.
Right. Some people are probably looking for all the technical thing, but it really that's what we do. And I guess at the foundation, too, here at Oakwood, we tend to get a very, very, very talented students. It's a very small school. This year we have, 1,400 students.
Right.
But we're always able to pull out 40 kids who could really sing. I can't explain it. It's in the water here. Take Six came from Oakwood, and there's a joke at Oakwood that you could pull any 4 guys off the corner and they'll just start harmonizing. It's that type of place.
I believe that.
Yeah, so many of the kids are just so gifted, and I don't want anyone to misunderstand me. I mean, we do teach the technical things. I mean, the voice department and the choir, we have a really great relationship, and I'll bring in the voice teachers. Like for ACDA, for example, we made sure to travel with our lead voice teacher on that trip. And then she came in periodically as we were preparing for ACDA. So yeah, we combine it, but that's not always my first line of attack, because I've learned in my situation, if I start there, is going to kind of turn off some of the kids who just don't understand that jargon.
That's fair.
Right.
No, I really hope my students are listening closely to what you just said, because I do think that there's kind of this anxiety, anxiety of influence, if you will, that you have to have mastery in the understanding of making music before you can make it. Right. So that's really beautiful to hear that in your experience and with this group, who undoubtedly they're choir of the worlds. They were invited to the ACDA. So I mean, they're such an example of excellence that you're coming at it from a heart-centered place.
Right. And the beauty of that, Jenna, I think is I know a lot of choir directors who approach it from a totally different angle, and it works for them. And I sit back and I'm like, man, that's amazing. But every director has to be true to themselves. And that's just not my first line of attack. Like I have a dear friend, Jeff Clayton down in Jacksonville, and I was adjudicating festival with him one time. Jeff is like an amazing vocal pedagogue. So he would go up and clinic the choir, and he would start from there. And I'll be like, man, how does he do that? That's amazing. And I enjoy it. And I think that's what makes art so much fun and so interesting, that everyone can approach something from a totally different way. But the end result is, we're just trying to create beauty. So that's just what works for me.
So the burning question from my student body is, what does an audition look like for the Aeolians? Oh man,
I hope I don't disappoint them. It looks just like any other audition, or probably even simpler.
Yeah.
We basically have 3 parts. We ask everyone to come in with a piece of their choosing that they want to sing. It could be any genre. So they come in to do that, and then I take them through some, vocalises just to check the range and colors, and if they could match pitch or match a sequence of pitches. And so that's the second part. And then the third part is the sight singing. And that's why we kind of separate we separate those who can really hang. And you know what, I have to say this. There are times, though, I would take some kids who are not the greatest readers, but they have an amazing instrument, and I could tell the aptitude is there for them to kind of learn it quickly. So over the years, I tend to take some people who didn't have that strong background in sight singing or sight reading or something like that. So that's the audition process. It's real simple. It takes us about 7 minutes a person. So I'm sorry to disappoint if you're looking at rocket science.
No, not at all. Once again, I think it's being able to break this down. Our objective in these talks is being able to show what the path looks like.
Right.
And to be able to go to university to study. Right. Maybe to study music, or maybe not to study music, and still be able to audition for your choir and incorporate music into your life. So I think it's good to know that it's an inviting space and a welcoming space.
Yeah. It's very inviting.
Good. So at this point, I want to let's bring Christian onto the screen, see what questions that we have coming in from our audience. Hi, Christian.
Right.
Oh, Christian, you're muted. Can you hear us? There you are. No, we can't hear you, Christian. I'm not sure what's going on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. There you are. Yeah.
Okay. So the question that was asked was, what advice do you give your students before they perform?
Like right before they perform?
Yes.
Mostly, that'll be either some kind of pep talk from me or pep talk from someone within the choir. And most of the time it's just guys, just remember the message we're trying to share, or the feeling we want people to kind of sense. That sort of thing. So normally it's an inspirational talk by someone in the group or myself, or sometimes we go somewhere and we meet a guest who knows us, and they'll jump in and say, "Hey guys, just remember to leave it all on the stage." That kind of thing. The choir has some routine, like a basketball team. They chant some little things sometimes just to kind of get the energy going. So that's what we typically do right before.
Okay. The question I'm gonna ask is a little more personal because I was wondering. What does work ethic look like in music?
What does it look like in music? I think it translates to learning as much as you possibly can about that particular genre. So for me, it's choral music. So I'm always seeking to learn something new, because the reality is we will never learn everything about the genre. So every day, just try to pour yourself into something. Am I studying a Bach chorale today, or learning some new piece that I've never heard about, or a new composer, or working on my gestures to make sure they're very, very clear and communicative. So things like that. I think work ethic just always translates to trying to learn more about the craft.
Okay. Those were all the questions I had.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Christian, and we will invite our student representatives back towards the end of the show. So,
Cool.
yeah, great. So talking a little bit again, we were talking about character focuses that we have for our school. The one this month, I think, is a heavy hitter. It's the word empowerment. So I want to ask you, in your experience of being the director at Oakwood University, what would you say is the greatest message that you give your students when it comes to around empowerment?
Yeah. The greatest thing I think I tend to give them, which when I just came to Oakwood, certain colleagues of mine seem to have an issue with this, and I could never figure out why. But I tend to delegate a lot to my students, empowering them to step into roles and do it. Like for example, as I'm talking to you right now, there's a audio session happening on campus, and I left my student conductor to do it. I'm not there. So things like that. I mean, I've learned that students will always rise to that occasion because they don't want to disappoint. And my student conductor is a budding music educator. He wants to be a conductor, and giving him that opportunity, grows him leaps and bounds. So for me, it's always trying to give my students the opportunity to do something within what we do, and that way they learn. That way I get to step back and learn from them, because sometimes the students can relay information to their colleagues in a clearer, better way than I can. And I'll step back and I'll learn. So I think empowering them is me just giving them the avenues for them to kind of get an early glimpse into what they can possibly do in music and help their budding careers. So that's my way of empowering.
So piggybacking off of that question, so again, most of the audience today are in high school right now. They're at a pre-professional public performing arts school. Music or fine arts are a big part of their life. So what advice would you give them if, say, there's a budding composer, conductor that's in the audience? How do they get to be where you are?
Wow. Well, the first thing you have to realize is that, and I think you take a lot of stress off yourself once you realize that many people, all of us have a different path, right? That's just life. So that's one. But secondly, though, you want to be intentional in equipping yourself with the tools that you'll need to do, whether it's being a composer or a conductor, that sort of thing. And then the third thing I'll say is this, and I find myself saying this a lot now to students. Your students are lucky that they're in a performing arts high school. I mean, I wish I went to one, but use this time because you will never get this time back. I mean, you and I know you do your undergrad. Okay, cool. Then you go to master's, and then if life hits, you don't get to roll the clock back and recoup time to learn repertoire and recoup time to learn theory and to learn performance practice. So to all the students out here, use this time wisely, because I promise you, like, I wish I could go back 20 years and spend more time doing this or spend more time doing that, because life hits family and work and that sort of thing. And so I guess I'm saying that to say you will be as good as the amount of time and how much you learn between now and then when you actually delve into the workforce or your professional life. Because after a certain point, the learning curve gets a little slower because life just hits. So learn all that you can right now. Start networking now with as many people as you possibly can. If you want to be a composer, start seeking out composers now and talking to them, email them, Zoom them, whatever. So you can start pointing to yourself early. Don't wait till later. Now is the time. Do it now.
Was there a particular connection that you made either while you were an undergrad and at Oakwood or in graduate school in Maryland? Was there a particular person that, because you had a connection with them, it opened a door for you?
Yeah. So when I was doing my undergraduate here at Oakwood, my conductor here at the time, he did his master's degree at Morgan State University, and the teacher at Morgan State University was legendary, Dr. Nathan Carter, who was there for 34 years. And because of that connection, I kind of had a very impromptu audition. We were in Las Vegas for some choir thing, and Nathan Carter kind of put me on the spot, and he said, "Hey, aren't you doing a recital soon?" And so he said, there was a piano in the room, and I think I played the Rachmaninoff C-sharp minor prelude. And I got in the middle, and he said, okay, good, that sounds great. He says, "Don't you conduct as well?" And his choir was sitting right behind him, and he made me conduct right there on the spot. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I got through that piece, and he said to me, "You know what, I'm going to make you my graduate assistant next year." So that's literally how I got into grad school. So when I talk about everyone having different paths, that's just life. At that point, I had not applied to one grad school. I really wasn't sure about what I was going to do, but that's how it worked out for me. So that's happened in February of '99, and I went to Morgan in August of '99. And so Nathan Carter was a huge influence on my life. Really changed my whole life. And then later on, because of Dr. Nathan Carter, he kind of introduced me to Ed McClary, who's the director of choral activities at Maryland. And I think they were adjudicating something. And long story short, Dr. Carter met him and said, "Jason, I just met this guy at Maryland," because Ed McClary was just new at Maryland. And he called him and said, "I have this young man here." And his last line on the phone was, "Whatever he doesn't know, he will learn quickly." But check this out, Jenna. I didn't go straight to Maryland. I went and I worked for 3 or 4 years at a high school in Pennsylvania. And by this time, Dr. Carter had passed away. I picked up the phone and I called Dr. McClary and I said, "Hey, you may not remember me, but Nathan Carter," and he said, "Oh yeah, where have you been?" So anyway, long story short, he made me no promises. He said, and I said, "No, I wasn't calling for a favor. I was just calling to let you know I'm interested in the program. I want to." So I auditioned and I got into Maryland that year. So Ed McClary came into my life at a very critical time when I felt like I needed to learn so much more. And he really poured into my life in a huge way. So those Nathan Carter and Ed McClary really groomed me into a professional conductor. Like I never really knew what I was before I met them, and I have so much to thank them for.
So I want to go back to that moment where you decided to pick up the phone and call Dr. McClary, because I think, I wonder if there are some students out there that are saying, yes, I know that there's this professor that I really would like to work with, but maybe feel like, but who am I, to place that phone call? So what advice would you give in that case?
Yeah, you have to be bold, and I'm naturally an introvert, so it's not in my nature to just pick up a phone and call somebody. But in the world we live in, you have to kind of come outside that shell and just really, and again, you have email now and so many other avenues to reach people. So don't be afraid to use it. You would find that many of these people are willing to help and give advice. Whether you end up studying with them or not, they could lead you on a path to find the right program for you. So yeah, students now should not be afraid to reach out to mentors at all. Yeah, and you'll be pleasantly surprised about how many of them are really nice people that really just want to help and pass their knowledge and their expertise on to the next generation. So yeah, don't be afraid to do it at all.
Good advice.
Yeah.
So the next topic is success, which this has been a particularly, strangely, I'm sure when you think back on 2020, it's going to be so many different emotions, right? As far as what what has occurred this year, and obviously the loss of life and what we have been suffering as a community, as a global community, but also within that time period, the Aeolians came out with an album that also was on the Grammy ballot, right, at the beginning of October. And you have come out with a book, Teaching with Heart, which I heard GIA is picking up, and now it's going to be a hard copy book as well, the compendium for the music educators that are listening out here. So could you talk to us a little bit about, this is a very broad question, I know, but as far as what perhaps when you were making that switch back when you were 18, what you thought success was going to look like on this path, and then contrast it to where you are today.
The honest answer to that is I had no idea. Honestly, honestly, I had no idea. I just knew that I wanted to be somewhere in music. And when I left Trinidad to come to Oakwood, I was really signing up for the composition degree. And I get to Oakwood's campus, and on the day of registration, I learned that for whatever reason, they disbanded that degree. And right there in the hallway, I said, okay, well, I guess I'll just do piano, because I was already a pianist. So I'm just trying to describe it. I had no idea what I was doing. So I did a piano degree for undergrad, but I knew I never really wanted to be a pianist. That's a lonely life in a practice room for 8 hours a day, and I wasn't digging that. So I tell people all the time, the last day I practiced seriously was the day of my recital. That was it. But I knew I always felt very comfortable in front of a choir. I even back in Trinidad, like if I had to play a piano solo or something, get those nerves and my hands are shaking. But in front of a choir, there's no nerves at all. And I figured then that, maybe that's what I should be doing just because of that reason. And so honestly, like I said, I finished my degree and I hadn't applied to grad school. I just couldn't figure out what I was doing. And it wasn't until I met Dr. Carter and then I started observing his life. I was like, oh, wait, so being a conductor is a thing. And that's when the light bulb went off for me. So I really had no idea of what success looked like then, honestly. But as I went on, I started forming thoughts of what success looked like. So, somewhere along the line, I figured that singing in these festivals or these things in Europe was a thing. And definitely when I went to my first ACDA in, I guess this was 2002 in New York. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I see choirs performing and a room full of just choral colleagues. I'm like, this is great. So I started forming ideas. Okay, maybe I should be trying to get this or attain that or recording albums on this level. So slowly I started formulating what success looked like and just started to make these goals. But honestly, I didn't have any idea of what it looked like at the beginning. Especially, and it makes sense because in Trinidad, choral music at the time is not a big thing like it is here. I mean, music in the Caribbean is calypso, soca, reggae, that sort of thing.
Sure.
Like choral classical music, I had no kind of example to see. So I probably kind of caught onto that kind of late. Yeah.
I can't help in listening to your story, but thinking that there's just such obvious evidence of a higher power at play. Because you look at that moment where you went for composition and then it was disbanded, and
Yep.
the moment that you met Dr. Carter, and then fast forwarding to just this last March, that the recording of the Aeolians CD happened just, what was it, 4 or 5 days before the school?
4 days before school shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You aptly reviewed it. A lot of things in my life just seems to, the stars line up at the right time, and people come along in my life exactly when I need them. And that's, like I said, everyone has their path, and you just have to follow the path. It's there. You just gotta kind of follow it sometimes. So yeah. So things seem to line up for us in a nice way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So will you talk to us, for the educators that are tuning in, a little bit about your new book, Teaching with Heart?
Right. So
mm-hmm.
yeah. So like you mentioned, we recorded this album, and literally I was having a Zoom conversation with some music educators around the country, and some kind of way we started talking about the songs on the album and how pertinent so many of them seem to what we're going through at the time. Right? And what I mean by like COVID, George Floyd, and everything that we went through this summer. So I mean, and again, we could not have planned this because we had no idea COVID was happening. We had no idea about George Floyd. But a song like "We Shall Overcome" all of a sudden was like, whoa, here we are again, and feel like we're in the '60s again. A song like "We Remember Them," which talks about the loss of loved ones, and here we are in COVID, and on and on and on and on. And we just started talking, and organically, this idea developed about, well, it looks like in the fall, many of us will be teaching virtually some sort of way. So what can we come up with that will help? So these teachers literally just picked songs and came up with modules, and slowly we started introducing national core standards and started addressing socio-emotional learning, and all of a sudden it started just coming together. So what we came up with was a 12-module book that deals with not just social injustice or how to address the losing loved ones, but it goes through some chapters about music and theory and different genres, or vocal jazz and how we incorporate that with the choral world. So it's just really 12 modules that can be used to introduce topics that are kind of hard to just start a conversation about in your choral room, but you can use the song as the starting point and then make your way to talk about these things that I think young people, we need to talk about now. And we as music educators have the tool of music to kind of lead to those discussions. And so we came up with this wonderful compendium that also has 4 hours worth of video interviews with many of the composers on the project. And some of those interviews were so moving. I mean, it brought us to tears. For example, the composer of The Promised Land, Ken Burton, who lives in England, and he had a conversation with Ryan Marsh, who's a high school teacher in Kentucky. And to see that conversation come together was pretty moving. And so I we think, and not think, we know, because many of the teachers are using the book in their classrooms even now. Mm-hmm. And the reviews that they are getting and the student feedback has just absolutely been incredible. And the book is very kind of tech savvy, a lot of links and a lot of correlations to songs that are not on the CD, but you can use this list of songs. It has a delve deeper section, has question banks. I mean, it's really, really loaded. I'm really proud about what we did and what we offered. And I think, I'm not trying to sell it or anything, but I think music educators around the country will benefit from it, especially in this age where we kind of virtual or hybrid or whatever is going on. It really makes that. And we wrote it in a way where you could decide, at 8 o'clock, let me do this chapter. And at 8:30, you could literally walk into your classroom and go through the lessons, just kind of laid out very, very plainly. Yeah.
And we're going to post a link so you can find out more information at JMax Music, correct?
Yeah.
the best place to find it for now? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can find it on my website, or it's on the GIA website. I think is in process of being printed right now. So I think the books will be ready like very, very soon.
Fantastic. How exciting for all of us educators out there.
Yeah, please get it.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so at this time I want to bring Ari. So she's gonna be a voice from above that will come in to speak with us again to see if there are any questions coming in from the audience.
Cool.
Hello.
Hey, Ari, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Okay, so the first question that I have for you is, what is your favorite part about your choir?
Ooh, the favorite part about my choir. I guess one thing is just how flexible they are. We could pretty much do whatever genre we put our minds to. So I like their flexibility. They could sing your choral classics. They could go into something very, very contemporary. They could switch to vocal jazz. I mean, they're very, very flexible, and they enjoy singing a wide variety of music. So I think that's the part I really like, because I like various genres as well. So that makes it fun. Are you there, Ari? Oh.
I think we might have lost Ari.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she just let me know that her Wi-Fi cut out. So perhaps she's back here. Ari, are you with us?
Yeah, sorry, my Wi-Fi cut out.
That's okay.
Fine.
But,
Go ahead, Ari. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from what I heard, having flexibility in your choir is great. Being able to perform different things is great to have in your choir.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's the one thing I like. I like probably, not the most, but one of the things I really do like. We could go so many different ways, and that makes it fun.
Mhm. Okay, so the second question I have for you is, what's your favorite part about teaching your choir?
What's the favorite part about what?
Teaching your choir.
The favorite part about teaching my choir? I guess I would say to that question, I mean, beside the music, we like to talk about a lot of life lessons and what makes life important, and what we should strive for in life. So I think I like the fact that we use music as a tool and a foundation, but really just trying to make ourselves better humans and better citizens. And they teach me so much in reciprocity as well. So just that interchange and those dialogue, those time of sharing ideas, and the dialogue really enriches me and hopefully enriches them, so that we can go beyond the music, and become better people in our societies and bring change. And I think that's the part that we all do enjoy day to day.
Yeah, that reminds me of Mrs. Odom, because she's just like that.
Yeah.
She helps us in more ways than just teaching us about music.
Exactly.
She teaches us about so many different things.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And music is just a tool, and we have to use it to do just that. Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Yep.
Okay. The next question is, who are the choral composers that you are drawn to when you're performing, and what draws you into them?
Oh man, that could be an exhaustive list. Well, some of them are live, some of them are not. Like I love Brahms. Something in me just resonates with Brahms. I love Bach. I love Beethoven. So the three Bs, I really dig them. And then the living composers, my friend Ken Burton in England, we probably do at least one piece of his every season. His writing is just always very clear, and you sense immediately the emotion he's after. So that's Ken Burton. Cedric Dent is another one of our favorite composers. Cedric Dent was the original baritone in the group Take Six. He's a dear friend of ours, and I mean, there's so many composers. Dale Trombore, another composer that I went to school with at Maryland. We actually sang one of our pieces at ACDA. There's so many composers. I hate calling. I don't want to leave anybody off, but there's so many. Steve Murphy is a faculty member here at Oakwood at we just love his writing, and it just it's so Oakwood. Oakwood has a particular sound, and he gets that. So those are some of the composers I really like. Some of the living ones and some of the dead ones, but those really inspire me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Those are the only questions that I have for you right now. So
That's fine. Thank you so much, Ari.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Ari. Appreciate you. I paid her to say all of those things, by the
That's funny.
way. Wonderful. So I think this was actually a really good segue, talking about programming. So anyone who watched the ACDA performance saw a remarkable feat in programming, that you did perform everything from Bach to contemporary pieces to Promised Land. And so speaking, I don't know whether this was intentional or not, but I think the Aeolians for sure have become a representation to many of us in the field of where we want to go when it comes to choral education. A conversation I think we're having all the time is the European influence in choral music, and being able to honor that, right? Being able to honor those composers like Beethoven and Bach, and where we've come from, but then also being able to have it be alive and relevant and interesting to a crowd that's mostly listening to pop music or musical theater. And you have found a way to be able to incorporate all of that while also breaking the barriers of what is expected from an all-Black choir in in today's world. So I'm just curious. I want to pick your mind for a moment. What are you thinking about? What were you thinking about in programming that ACDA conference?
Yeah, that's a great question, and very loaded question as well. So I think that little phrase you said, that expectation of what people tend to think from a Black choir, I think that comes from both sides, right? I think from the Black side, if I could use that term in this context, that side has probably fed that ideology for many years by doing, perhaps too much of one style of music, or not doing enough of another style, that sort of thing. I mean, we could argue that for a year and still have no conclusion. But so for us, we thought it important, and really it just culminated in the journey, in a 12-year journey. So when I came to Oakwood, one of my goals, we talked about goals earlier, was just to expand and to put more tools in the tool belt of the Aeolians, so we could do Bach, or we could do this, we could do that. Because, the Aeolians mainly sound a lot of spirituals and that sort of thing, which is fine. But I quickly had to learn that, hey, if we want to be in the larger choral world and not just in our denomination kind of setting, we will have to do these things. So that was one mindset. The second thing I think that feeds into that is, like I said, my background when I was younger, in my teens, I tried to learn so much about so many different genres. So I think that just pours into my programming. So, like I mentioned, Take Six. Take Six to this day is still my favorite group in the whole wide world. You can't come to Oakwood and not like Take Six. So in the ACDA program, a song like Smile probably reflected that. And we had original member Take Six on stage with us. All right, great. Doing the Bach was something to stretch my singers, because to that point I had never done any Bach, and people think I'm lying when I say that, but it's absolute truth. But the flip side of that was, I knew that an ACDA audience would probably need to hear that, especially from a choir that looks like us. Right? Another consideration I went into that program, and here's that flip angle I was talking about. So we knew and we sensed that that people expect to hear some kind of showstopper spiritual from us, like a Elijah Rock or a Joshua the Battle. And we purposely didn't program a spiritual like that. Instead, we chose to do a slower, softer spiritual, the William Dawson, My Lord with Our Morning, because we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves. Oh, here comes the black horn, here comes I didn't want that. So I'm just kind of giving you some of the ingredients. I went to the selection. So we chose the Dawson, but the Dawson also had a greater significance. And those of you who came to ACDA, if you read the program notes, I think I mentioned it in there, that Dawson did his master's right there in Kansas City, but for whatever reason, he wasn't allowed to come up on stage and get his certificate. And we thought it would be in tribute to him to be on this stage at the Jubilee celebration at ACDA, sing one of his settings on a stage, not the same stage, but figuratively, a stage where he couldn't come and get this degree in composition. So that was part of the underlining reason for picking that. I mean, apart from, I just absolutely love that setting of My Lord with Our Morning. And then the Promised Land, something we ended with, was just to try and, kind of tell the whole story of, hey man, here are goals, and here we are as a people trying to attain these things. And Ken did a beautiful job of marrying the Martin Luther King text with Paul Laurence Dunbar and four text settings, and bringing it together to show unity, and it allowed for imagery and choreography and that sort of thing. So we wanted that visual element in there as well, and having the narrator in there with I flew David Johnson in from California for what, 32 seconds of narration. I mean, that's how deep it was to me, because we could have gotten anyone else to repeat the words, but I wanted people to immediately sense, oh wow, that's MLK, because he talks like MLK, and he's known for memorizing all those speeches. So those are some of the elements that we wanted to throw into the program, and just find a way to take people on a journey, as opposed to just I don't know as opposed to what, but we just wanted people to kind of feel the ups and downs, and oh wow, we didn't expect this. Oh wow, Bach from these kids. And then people always ask me too about so why the instruments were in between the choir. I don't know, we just thought it would be cool. We thought it'd be cool, and it also just kind of lent a different vibe to the whole presentation. Like, to have a violin right next to you, either playing your part or not playing your part, is just a different synergy. And initially at the rehearsal, the instrumentalists were kind of looking at me kind of crazy, like, what are you doing? But some of those same players came to me after and said, man, we finally get it. This was like the best thing ever. It's a different vibe like this. So those are some of the elements we wanted to do. Not saying it was entirely new or trend setting, but for us, it just felt good. And when we finally had the right sequence of songs, we just kind of went right into learning it, and we just thankful that we could execute it in a way where it seemed like, we're not experts in any of those genres, but we just had fun in doing those songs. And but that's the whole point, right? Just trying to make it seem in a way that's just fun, and we're not thinking about it. We wanted to get on that stage and not think, just kind of let it out, and hopefully that's what people felt.
I think to talk about that, the core of the work that you were doing was to enjoy the experience, and then the mastery came because of that core, because of that intention.
Right.
That's beautiful. When I saw the performance, seeing the instruments interspersed between the singers, to me, it was, you talk a lot in your rehearsal process with the singers, thinking about what instrument would you be, right?
Right.
Asking that question. So I think it was for me, the visual was sort of bridging the gap that, the whole ensemble was the orchestra, including the singers.
Right.
Since we often get a singer sort of pushed to the side as, well, they're singers and then there are musicians, right?
I hate that,
yeah, right. So you put everybody together on the same stage and intersperse them.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit as far as, obviously, COVID has affected all of us in the fine arts. I've heard you talk a bit about what life looks like for you at Oakwood University, but could you share with us what does a choir rehearsal look like for you today?
Yeah. Times are considerably lessened. We meet for like 50 minutes on a Thursday and a Friday, so twice a week now. And you know what? It's made me way more efficient too, because you have to do everything in 50 minutes. And I'm a student. I look at my clock. I'm like, all right, that's it. Let's go. Let's get out. So on Tuesday, what we do, I give them some music ahead of time, and they have to spend time on their own, or sometimes they get together on Zoom and kind of check parts. Now, when we come together on Thursday, we can kind of dive deeper in and get stuff learned quicker. But I have to say, I'm so proud of my students. We did a recording, kind of video audio recording 2 weeks ago. Oh man, and they sounded absolutely fabulous. And I think once I realized that this semester is so much more about keeping the community together of the choir and less about musicianship and musical prowess. I think once I realized that, everything was fine. The first few rehearsals, I was like, okay, man, we can't hear like we normally hear. But once we let those things go, you know what? Let's just sing because we like coming together and that sort of thing. Everything just kind of fell into place. So when we actually got to recording, we were kind of listening, like, man, you guys actually sound really, really good. I mean, I don't know what they'll sound like without a mask. It'll be amazing. But so that's what it's been. It's just been about keeping the community together, keeping the students' spirits kind of high, and trying to keep goals ahead of them. I mean, we don't have many, we don't have any trips planned or this or that, but just keeping small goals ahead of them so they could kind of feel inspired. So that's what the rehearsal looks like. Everyone is in their singer's mask. Hold on.
The duckbill one, is that what you're using as the
resonance mask?
The resonance mask, yeah. Yeah, okay.
Everyone has one of those on, and everyone has a huge Wegner shield in front of them. So we bought like 80 of those. So, huge. We moved our rehearsal to one of the newer gyms on campus in a huge circle. So that's what it looks like now. It's strange, but, we make it work for right now.
Interesting. So we had spoken with Dr. Abigail Santos Villalobos, she's a professor at Belmont University. And she was telling us that she has a cycle where they're in a space for 30 minutes and then they clear out so that the air is able to recycle. Are you doing something similar to that?
So this new gymnasium, which is attached to the church on our campus, the ceilings are so high. I mean, it's so high, I don't even know what it is. I don't know. It was just really, really tall. And the air-conditioned vents, it's a new building. The building just went up like a year and a half ago. Okay. So we have the really good air ventilation system. We keep 3 of the doors wide open so the air could just constantly go out. And I think with the 50-minute thing, sometimes we take a break, I think like 30 minutes in, and we kind of let some people go out and we come back in. So we think with the 50 minutes, it gives the room enough time to kind of clear up. So far we've had no cases as a result of choir rehearsal, which is great. Every semester though, we've had people that the university had to kind of isolate only because they were in contact with someone who got it, but they didn't have it themselves. So far we've been lucky in that respect that we've been able to do it and do it safely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you were to kind of put together a checklist of the things that because we're looking to go into at least a hybrid, if not an in-person format pretty soon in our district. And so if you were to put together a checklist that you would have had to hand over, to administration in order to be able to sing safely, what would that checklist be?
Definitely. So a room where you could get way more than 6 feet between the singers. Okay. I think we have like 10 to 12 for us. High ceilings, great ventilation system that gets that old air out and recycles. I would highly recommend those Wegner shields. It just gives me another layer of comfort, I guess. So you have the mask on, you have the shield on, so for sure the aerosols are not getting fast right here. Those shields are kind of expensive, but I think it's worth it. And less time together in the room. So I think once you do those things, that's the best we can do right now. Unless you just have the spatial capability and the technical capability to actually have smaller groups of singers in totally different rooms. But now we're talking about having the software and the engineering to get that latency out. So I know schools like Peabody and I think Yale, they've had the capability to do that. So they could put 5 singers in this room and 5 singers in another room way across the building. So unless you have that, those are the things I would highly recommend. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to us. Well, and then this will be our last question because I know your 2-year-old son probably would like his dad to read him a bedtime story before he goes to sleep. But could you tell us a little bit about your hopes for the Aeolians as well as this sort of broadly for the fine arts as we recover? Obviously we're not there yet, but when we get there, when we recover from this time period with COVID right now. Mm-hmm.
Great question. Honestly, I'm so excited about the potential at that time because it's my hope that musicians in a whole and conductors especially would find now really, really deep and impactful ways to program and not just do kind of surface level programming. I mean, by the time we get back to some sort of normalcy, I mean, how many people would we have lost to COVID? We don't know. But right now we had close to 240,000. So how can we just go now and just program willy-nilly? We need a program with some substance and some core and some heart. So I'm just really excited to see what people are going to come up with. I've been thinking about what I want to say once we get back to normalcy. We've had so many things that need addressing, and that's another thing about the book. I don't think no longer should we sit back and just not address what we see in society. I think now is time we need to reflect in our programming and our singing and our deliberate art, things that our society needs to hear and needs to see. So that's my goal, and I'm thinking people are going to do that in some way, form, or fashion. And so I'm looking forward. It'll almost be like a renaissance, right? Because no one is performing in a serious way right now. It'll be a renaissance and a revitalization of all of that. That's always proves to be an exciting time. So I can't wait. Hopefully it comes sooner than later. Because right now we kind of operating largely devoid of music, and it sucks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know that everyone watching you're resonating with all of us for sure.
Yeah.
We're making the most of it. But it certainly is different. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So I one last note on the book too. I just want to say for the music educators out there, I think that this book really does push us to being able to program every aspect of the national standards and not just the perform portion, which tends to be what we all focus on just for the sake of time. And so could you talk a little bit about your hope for how one of these lesson plans would play out in a unit?
Yeah, I think so remember early in the conversation I talked about for us in the Aeolians, we have learned to add this other layer of preparation. So here this is, we're able to sing through the program from top to bottom, and it sounds great, it sounds beautiful. But for us there's another layer of things that we like to throw into that pot, things of, hey, what is this song? What's the emotive quality of this entire song? And then we break it down even further. Hey, in these first 5 bars, what do we want the audience to feel? How do we want to feel? And then we go even further. We say, okay, Jason, these 5 bars here need to depict, pain and sorrow, whatever. So Jason, we need you to think of something in your life that, we're not trying to trigger anyone, but we need to have an image in our head. So you can have 40 different people thinking of a different scenario, but and then the next 10 bars, hey, now it needs to be picked joy and sunshine and sorrow. So we go through painstakingly trying to find those little elements to make it very, very, very relevant. And so this book, I think, helps with that process because it takes you through the minefields of talking about the specificity of songs and what they possibly mean, what the composer really was trying to get at, and how we can pour ourselves into it. And I think by and large, all the modules, and then especially if you see an interview with the composer to hear from his or her mouth, this is what I was trying to do. So the combination of the book itself, and then you have the videos, and you see that interaction, I think will take everything to a whole nother level. And then you could extrapolate that and use it for whatever program, whatever songs thereafter, because now you have the system in place. And the, I think it really reflects the Aeolian system and what we do. You know, by and large, it kind of takes us through our process. And so I think it really adds that other level. And whether it's middle school or high school, you'll be surprised that like one of the contributors for the book, he shared with me a video testimony from one of his students, and I was just blown away by how smart and articulate and how deep she got into the topic that she was talking about. I mean, and I was like, oh my gosh, how old are you? Like, it was really that good. And we would be surprised as music educators about how smart and not smart is not the word I'm looking for. How deep thinkers and critical thinkers our students really are. And sometimes we need to kind of prod it a little bit, and we could start shaping the next set of lawyers and politicians and doctors just by getting them to think, you know, in a deep way. So that's our hope for the book. And so far, those that have been using it, those are the results they've been getting. So I'm really, really happy for that.
Wonderful. I can't thank you enough. I've been looking forward to having this conversation with you for quite some time now, and I know my students are the same. So we are just delighted to be able to hear a little bit about your journey and to get to hear about the next chapter for not only for you but also for the Aeolians as well.
No problem at all. It's been my pleasure to share. And have you students, you could follow me on. People tell me my Facebook thing is full, so follow me on Instagram. Just my regular name, Jason Max Ferdinand. You could find me on there because I like to see what the young people are going to be doing in the generation behind us. Like they come up with some cool stuff. So just follow me on there. I'll be glad to follow you back.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're always learning from our students, right? And the journey will certainly continue. So wonderful. Thank you again. And in closing, so everybody remember that this whole series is leading up to, we've been talking about all these various artists' journeys on the Yellow Brick Road. Because we have our virtual production of The Wizard of Oz Young Performers Edition that is opening on Thursday. So get your tickets now, the 12th, 13th, and 14th at 7 p.m. and then also the 15th at 2 p.m. You can go to hammondapa.booktix.com. We're really proud of this production. It is a full production, part happening live. The scenes are happening live, and then of course the music has been mastered ahead of time. But it's been a labor of love, and we look forward to seeing you guys there. And thank you again, Dr. Ferdinand, for being a part of this conversation that's leading up to that opening for us.
Thank you for having me, and kudos to you all for putting that together in these difficult times. That's commendable.
Thank you. As we just spoke about, we have to find ways to be able to keep the arts alive during this time.
Yeah.
So good. All right. Well, thank you so much. And
you're welcome.
all right.
Yeah. Bye.
All right. Bye, everyone.